me. Come on strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you want to be more than friends.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah.
So if that and basically what that means is that I've got to put the structures in place so that, as you said, my budget includes putting things in, replacing things, getting things to the point where they're at that level. And as you and I have been talking, I still have two daughters at home. I have a wife, and I don't want to do social media after I get done with this, right? Forever. I mean, I understand that you have to do certain things to get things started, but I don't want to be like 5 years from now, get up out of this chair after a show, and then have to go and tweet it and do all this other stuff. I'm not doing that. So
as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking a lot of people, say, hey, what's the secret to your success? And you'll hear these stories about, well, I was in corporate America, I hated it, and then one day I just decided I was going to go for my dream, and I went for that. And Charles, when I hear you talking, I hear you saying something, this is my passion. Like when I say music is my passion. And by the way, it doesn't mean that all you viewers of Social Web Cafe that you're not my passion, because you are. But it sounds like if you're doing something that really isn't kind of that driving force, that maybe you shouldn't be doing it. I mean, maybe you have to do it. Maybe, I don't know anyone that cleans toilets and says cleaning toilets is my passion.
That's right.
Sometimes you have to do stuff that you don't enjoy doing, but it sounds like that mainstay, you really want to go for something that you thrive. Like personally, I actually love doing the shows. It's kind of on the same lines as the music. So
right,
when I
exactly.
give that up, I'm like, I don't want to give that up. I enjoy doing that too, but I do need to make room for the music passion. So I think I'm saying something a little bit different. It sounds like with your info products, even though they were making money, it wasn't like, wow, I just get up in the morning because I don't even want to see the sunshine or the coffee. I just can't wait to get to the info products. I don't hear you saying that.
Right. No, that's right. And for instance, I mean, I could do, if I had the energy, I could do a show of some kind 8 hours a day, right? So the basis is, right, for me to figure out, like, I can do marketing momentum, I could do gain mind, I could do all this stuff, I could do this stuff all day. So I know also from having watched people and from having analyzed different business models that there's some people that get out of their chair after they've done a show and they're done. They're done, right? And I'm not even talking about the whole lifestyle business or anything. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about thinking practically about how to monetize what it is that you provide value in, or what I provide value in. And to the small business community here in Harrisburg, I mean, we've got a newspaper here, and they're sort of getting into consulting, right? They're sort of moving from, just delivering the news, and they've kind of hired this big staff, and they're getting into consulting. There's the Cranes company, who they've got different outlets all over the country, and they kind of they're redoing the same thing. It's really Crane Chicago business, but they do it in different cities and different regions as the same business model, which is they do business news, and they are the business publication. And they've got, I don't know how big the staff is, but I know that's their business model. And what I do is different, right? I mean, I'm doing audio broadcasting. I might do some video, but I'm talking to small business owners. And, I might not talk to the guy that Cranes might talk to. I might talk to the same guy, but I want to talk to them about, not only what they're doing in business, I want to talk to them about what's going on with them personally. And then I want them to, kind of share with folks what a lesson learned is. That's a typical show. I know that that's going to be a little different from what Cranes does, and they don't want to do what I do. But I also know they don't have time to do what I do because of the economics, right? Because if they could do it, they'd be doing it, right? They've got to make their economics work. They've got a building, they've got equipment, right? And I know what that means on the balance sheet. I mean, on the income statement, right? Depreciation, no depreciation. I know what that stuff means. They've got staff, they've got health care, they've got to pay for all that stuff. So they've got to sell papers and they got to sell advertising. I don't have to do that, right? I don't have to sell advertising. I could, excuse me, I figured out the numbers, right? I could take care of things if nobody ever advertised. If I can get between 100 to 200 visitors to my site every day, right? That'd be all I'd have to do. I wouldn't have to.
And that's a pretty low number, actually.
It's a pretty low number, but
Pretty doable.
I understand the numbers, but they've got to be a certain kind of person. So they can't just be. They can't be sort of like not interested in this. They've got to
So
kind of,
you can't
because
have your
again,
puppy and your cat and your parrot and grandma who's in the nursing home be four of the people.
right? Because I mean, look, if the ads that are served are irrelevant, right? I don't make anything, and I don't want to have to put the ads, in people's way in order to get what they came to the site to get. I want them to come back every day, but at the same time, they've got to be relevant. So if I can get those people to come, right, I could take care of things if they came consistently, and I don't have to play with them. I don't have to mess with them. I don't have to try to talk them into stuff. So I can do all of that just with that number of visitors, and the economics will work. So having said that, with the other thing that I figured out was that if I could do that, like if I can establish the baseline, then all I have to, if I did an event every so often, right, that's of benefit to the business community, right? I don't have to go to the, yeah, I should go to the networking events, but I don't have to, right?
Mhm.
Because that's not what the thing is about. Here's what you and I know, and I'm going to tell everybody who, it's an open secret to probably everybody who's got a web show of any kind, and now to everybody else who's listening.
An open secret. I like that.
Okay, it's open secret. Business owners like exposure, right? And so
Really? No.
and so they like it, and they may not think they do, but once they get it, they like it. And then once another guy sees it, they got it, then another guy wants it too. And so, excuse me. And so part of this does not have to be I get an audience because they love me per se, right? I can sort of live with it if they don't. They love themselves, right? And they're going to see to it. Yeah, they're going to see to it. They're going to see to it that that show gets exposure. All I got to do is to make sure that the experience is good for them. Now, I'm not gonna pimp the people who are watching it, right? So I'm not gonna let anybody come on and advertise. I'm gonna be in control. I mean, I know what I want to accomplish at the interview. I know what I want to. I pretty much know what I want out of the interview before it happens, so that it provides good information. But at the same time, it's gonna make them look good. Like if they can just hit it out the park and just answer the questions like an expert should, they're going to look good, and they're going to want other people to come listen to it, and they're going to want other people to come and talk about it. So because it's in their best interest, it's going to work to my favor, and that's never going to go away. So even if these big companies decide, oh, we're going to do a podcast now, we see this guy doing it, hey, we got to get into podcasting, that means meaningless to me, right? Because all I need is the one guy, right, who wants to promote himself or who wants to just be able to get an audience with people that he would never get otherwise. Okay, if a plumber gets an audience in front of, like my average show, I might have 500 listeners and to download right now. I mean, I hope it goes up from there. But if 500 people hear this guy, where's he gonna get 500 people there talking about plumbing? Nowhere. I know that, right? And so I've got to be consistent at delivering to the people, that I don't let that plumber just get on and just go on and on about nothing. Right? At the same time, I've got to let him, make him look good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And some of that, as you know, you have to prevent some people, right, from making themselves look bad.
Yes, you have to almost lead them. And I found that, so like on the interviews, sometimes the people that I think are going to be the most dynamic. Now, nobody go to SOCIALWebCAFE.tv and analyze, okay, I wonder, did she think this one was going to be, was it?
That's
I mean,
right.
some people, you know, emails and stuff, you're like, wow, he or she's
This is going to be awesome, right? Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're not awesome. It's just there's some people that I feel like I have to like be 2 cups of coffee for them and really be about like, oh, so what'd you do? You know, like be extra excited to get them going. And then it's one sentence, and it's like, oh wow, I got to do this again to get the second sentence. And right. You realize that interviews are not necessarily for everybody.
They're not.
That wants exposure.
It does, right? Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know about you. You know, when that happens, it gets really hot in here. Like I start when I'm trying to keep up with somebody, it just gets really hot, and I'm sweating. I'm thinking, oh man, I'm literally sweating. Like, man, I've got to really work on this time. But you know,
mm-hmm.
I know that if the lady or the guy looks good, they're gonna do the work for me.
Yep.
They're gonna do the social media. They're gonna do all that stuff. They're gonna share it everywhere. I remember there's one guy, and he was just a terrific interview. There's still people listening to him, but the month that he was on the show, right? I think 10,000 people listened to his broadcast.
Wow.
10,000.
Was that on Blog Talk Radio?
Yeah, 10,000 people.
Okay, now I'm curious who.
He was a flower guy. One of the guys did flowers. And
see, now that I've asked you who, because you said 10,000, I'm like, oh wow, who drew 10,000 people? Then I go listen, and then anyone else listening to this podcast has to go listen, and you get another 5,000.
And he was good, right? And what he said was interesting, and he liked it, right? And again, I think that the interview, it fed entrepreneurs, but it wasn't because I was a great host. It wasn't because I've got the dynamic entrepreneurs of today. Hey, this is a guy who, he's doing his thing. He's kind of this bodybuilder, and he does flowers at the same time. So, he's
that's really the image of that. It's just like so special.
Right, yeah. And so he's just got this real vibe about himself, right? So he was just a good guy to talk to. And like you said, and the other thing is like everything else, I think, it's not even that what we were saying is that one person's a bad interview. Is sometimes, quite honestly, in spite of, our glowing personalities, right? Some people we just don't click with, hard as that is to believe. But
I can't imagine.
Right, yeah. So because I honestly, I've heard some people, I hear them and I think, oh, I got to get that guy, and then I get him on, and I say, well, man, he didn't do the same thing on mine. And there's
surprises too. I've had some people that I don't want to call them fillers. This is just I'm admitting this on the air now, but it's like, okay, I got to fill this slot, and this sounds like an interesting topic, and I'll get them on my show, and it's like, wow, they're intelligent,
they hit it out the park,
they're articulate,
right? They hit it out the park,
warm,
right?
And it's like, ooh, that was a good surprise.
Right, yeah. So really, man, that was the whole thing, man. I've worked out the economics so that I don't have to, what's the word? I don't have to prostitute the show to change the nature of the show from giving good information and let my guests look good in order to make a few dollars until I can do something, until I can do an event. I figured out how to, I don't want to sound like a guru, right? The economics have always been there. I have just not pursued them. And I guess we could kind of talk about this because all of us do this, I think. And I'll tell you this, and again, this is like full disclosure day or something. I feel like I first got involved with in online marketing and content marketing. And there was a gal I interviewed when I found Blog Talk Radio. I thought I was in heaven. I said, they're gonna let me let me do this for free. And I said, oh, well, you could pay $39. I said, still $39? They're going to let me be on this thing for $39 a month? So anyway, so I interviewed this woman, and she called herself Niche Lady, and I can't even remember what her name was. But she said on this show, she said, content marketing is that you need to be prolific in producing content. If you wanna do this, you have to have the drive and the passion to be prolific, right? And I said, man, when she said that, it was like, man, I get it, man. That's it. That's what I want to do. So I said, and then I looked at AdSense, and I said, oh man, that's what I got to do. So then I go marching off to the.
You can't hear it on the podcast, guys, if you listen to this later, but you can see your eyes. Your eyes are like popping open. That
right.
Wow, this is.
and so I go on the forum. First I go on the forum and I say, yeah, I figured this thing out. I think I got it. And then the first thing that happened was somebody said, that's right, but you could make a lot more money if you did cost per action marketing.
If you did what?
CPA or cost per action marketing.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you know what? That's the path I took. I left that business model on the table that was simple to understand, and I have returned every so often. I can't remember it, and last time I did this was back in 2010, right? 2010, there was a guy who he was building websites back when, building websites was the way that you generated, just an income. He was building these niche websites. Right. Yeah. 2000, I think it did. And he was building what he called authority sites, whatever that meant. But he was building these authority sites. People were coming to the site. He had a little AdSense thing going, and people were saying, well, you could probably make a lot more money if you sold affiliate products. Another guy would say, well, you make a lot more money if you did, you did video. You make a lot more. He said, yeah, you're probably right. But he said, listen, I work about 10 hours a week. I build on what I do a little bit every day. And the minute I start doing these other things, I get out of the groove of doing this thing I understand. And man, that has really always lingered in the back of my mind, because this guy said, yeah, I could do all that. And you're probably right. All of that stuff would make more money. But he said, it wasn't even the whole time thing. It was just kind of like, okay, I understand this one thing though. And if I stop trying to understand this thing, every minute I spend buying information products, listening to gurus, trying to incorporate the things that I learn into something else, I get off my game, right? And so I think, and this does not apply to everybody, and I understand that. This applies to me. So if you're listening, if you think I'm trying to tell you, you're not doing your thing right, yeah, you got to figure this thing out for yourself. What I can tell you is,
Charles isn't saying stop selling info products. He's not saying that. He's just telling his story and his path.
Right. No, I'm just talking about my thing, and I think. But what I am saying is, you got to figure out the economics so you don't kill yourself, because that's not the answer either. if you stack income producing methods, but they all require you to be there real time, that's not going to work. It's not going to get you, and take that from somebody who's done that. It's not going to get you what you want.
I've done that.
Right. I mean, you know,
Why
it
am I
just
so burned out?
right. I mean, you know, it's so I've heard that guys. I've seen his message in my head, and I've been saying, you know what, I've got to go back to the one thing I knew at the very beginning. My intuition was right. I do this radio show. I build one site, right? I said, you know, because I don't want to do 10 sites to make AdSense revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
That never made sense to me, even though it made sense to a lot of people, right? And I always felt like, okay, well, Google's going to shut that down, not because it's wrong, but because you can't focus on one thing, and eventually you're just not gonna be able to do the job on all those things at the same time.
You're talking about 10 different sites that kind of feed into the same, like variations on the same site. Like, for instance, I have 10 different blogs, but I did learn the same thing as what you're saying. I learned that I focus on primarily Social Web Cafe, which is the .com and the .tv. The .tv is audiovisual, and the .com is a blog. And I'm not trying to do this as an advertisement. It's just an illustration. But all the other blogs, they may be personal. They may be great quotes. I set them aside to make sure that I was focusing all my time on just that real estate.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, and I think it's always been going in that direction, right? And I think that the whole push, and not that even Google's the end all be all, but I think that their push toward authorship, right? Their push toward wanting you to have, you know, wanting you to use. You're not gonna put rich snippets in 10 sites. You're just not going to do it. You don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. And so you could kind of move with the grain on this thing, or you could just be moving, and that I think just kind of supports the way to run a web business, which is you've got a product, you've got something you're delivering, you've got a brand, and you have to deliver the brand. So I think that is where I've just decided to go with this. I'm going to deliver the brand and work on the brand, and whatever I have to do, but before that brand does what it does is what I have to do. That's all in the background. That's all the stuff that, you know, goes into history when you get to where you're going. But I do not despise what I did in creating info products, because the learning experience was off the charts. I mean, the stuff that I learned in creating my own info products, building a list, maintaining a relationship with that list, selling to that list, has been, I think, I could not pay for a better education. There's not an info product in the world that could have taught me what I learned from having done that. And so now I can take that into what I'm doing and really kind of work on the thing. So that experience was necessary, but just as necessary as it was, it's necessary to shut it down now.
So the message for our audience and the momentum as far as encouraging of the show is really to get focused. You can still have fun. You can still take a break from that focus and, wow, oh, cool, plugin, let me try that out or whatever. I mean, you don't have to be like stoic or, you know, wipe away the smile from your face. You can still have fun, but just remember what that focus is. So you keep moving forward on that one. And what was it, Gladwell, with the 10,000 hours? You get better and better at your game. Just stay with that game.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, I see, you know, you have really kind of, I mean, your thing has been about the show. Now you're talking about, and I haven't really heard you talk as much about your music, and maybe, you know, we probably need to unpack that a little bit and try to find out, you know, what that, because I would be interested to know, as you know, in this new age, what the economics are, and maybe, you know, we should talk about that, you know, where we talk about those economics. I don't know. You know, I tell, you know how you go to a dinner party and you just, whenever you're the internet person, you just kind of wax eloquent on stuff, and you just kind of say stuff, and people kind of listen to you and they say, yeah, I think you're right, when you may or may not be. But I always tell, like, my artist friends, right? I say, you don't have to have. Yes, gone are the days where you have to go to a record label. You can do your own thing in distribution. And they sort of say, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should do something, like that. But I don't really know, if that's the way it works in that.
You can, but you have to have, just like with a business, you have to have a business plan on how you're going to make that money. And for me personally, I have no problem with charging money, merchandising, all of that. I have no problem. I just, at the time that I started my music career, I was well funded because I also had a corporate job. So my focus was, I want this to be free. But there has to be a balance on that. I'm not going to complain if people are like, oh, wow, I loved your album so much, so I'm sending you a check for $10,000. I'm not going to say no, So,
no, I'm sorry, I won't take it.
So there's a balance, and I think I'm kind of in a redefining as far as where does that fit, because in the portion of free, it also didn't get as much attention as, say, the paid stuff, kind of like what you shared about the info products. So it's like, where does that fit? It can't be so free for the consumer that it doesn't get any attention.
Now, does it work the way, it does for, now, this is just what I'm hearing. I mean, is that the economics work when here's the way, or when you and I listened to, who was it, Sean Souza, talk about Sting, and he talked about the fact that, okay, he does these little boutique performances, that's sort of this one thing, that he sells the albums, that's sort of the other thing, and then he does these, big concerts, and then he does like consulting. So with those four things combined, that makes the entire pie. So that's
kind of more, there's a lot of musicians that I know of that have gone into like the social media coaching and so forth, just because they've had to do it themselves. They've had to go out there and, get the buzz on their music. So then they learn all these different things, especially back in the, when MySpace had the heyday. And so they'd say to other musicians, hey, hire me. I'll go, get your MySpace set up. I'll go do the social networking. So, and there's, it's like there's two groups of musicians, where there's some that are not technological at all, and then there's a lot of them that are very technological, and so sometimes that can help fund the music, depending. Right. I'm sure there's people in between that point, but it's really easy to see the two extremes on that one. So there's a lot of different creative, but it's not, I don't think it's as simple as it was, in the 50s where you go get signed. But then, on the other hand, it's a lot easier to get out there. It's a lot easier to, you can go on iTunes really easily.
Right. And now, do you do live venues? Do you do that or?
I haven't as much since I've been doing the Social Web Cafe. I used to do the live venues, and
what's an interesting thing? I was listening to the interview inside of Mixergy, and I think I even shared with you a little bit about it, about Tim Ferriss, and about how, and I didn't know the whole story because I'd been hearing things about the 4-Hour Chef. I didn't necessarily want to buy it because I didn't want to hear him talk about food, but I guess now I know it's about more than that now, so I might actually
because you didn't care, you didn't want to be hungry.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess he'd come to the point where he wanted to publish his book through Amazon. Well, that just sends all the book publishers sideways. So here's this big high-profile guy, right? He's going to publish his book with Amazon, so they blackballed him. Right, so nobody would publish it. They actually took
the time to do that? They networked enough to blackball him?
They all turned him down. Nobody would publish his book. Even after the 4-Hour Workweek, nobody would publish this book. And they basically said, okay, we're not going to carry it, and then we're not going to publish it. So he goes to Ryan Holiday. And what they did was, and so the title of the session was, I want to call it, whether it was some kind of hacking, product hacking or revenue hacking or something. Well, what he was saying was that you have to somehow hack this process so that you approach the income angle from a almost either sideways or diagonal, so that it doesn't interfere with what anybody else does. And so nobody else can really quite figure out what you're doing, but you're sort of doing something that's going to lead to what you're doing. So what he did was he took all of his extras, videos, interviews, notes, stuff he had been doing leading up to the book, packaged it all up together, 750 megabytes, right? And put it on a BitTorrent site. Gives people access to it on BitTorrent. And basically,
did he announce that, or did he get someone like Ryan Holiday to really get the like? Okay.
Exactly. Right. So they had something unreal, an enormous amount of people to download this stuff prior to the book launch. When the book launch came, the day it launches, sells 250,000 copies.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. So you think about that, and I think what Ryan Holiday's point is that the people who are going to create growth are going to be the people who can hack the process. He said so somehow or another, everybody, and so at least that's what I'm hoping I'm doing with the web show in the local area thing. I'm hoping that this is a hack sort of thing. But you've got to somehow,
that visualization makes sense.
You got to somehow come at this so that if the game is just selling, and so, but his game is not just selling the book, even though the book sold phenomenally, right? I'm pretty sure he had to pay Ryan Holiday quite a bit of that too. But the game was what happens after the book, and that's been a phenomenal success. They said so many people new to his brand inside of his marketing funnel. He said it was overwhelming. And so that's what this process did, was obliterated the whole book launch, right? So anybody who's thinking that you have to do a book launch this way, you've got to do, they weren't even thinking about social media. It had nothing to do with social media. It had everything to do with the fact that they got this. Now he let everybody else do the social media for him. Mm-hmm. There's this thing coming, and it put it on the BitTorrent site, and that just kind of gave it a life of its own. So the point of the whole session was, well, how can you hack your income process? How can you hack the building process so that you bring people to your brand rapidly and with a desire for what you have, right? So,
that reminds me of the story of, have you heard of Larry Norman? He's like the grandfather of Christian rock, if you will. I mean, I think we're going back 60s. He was just, he's a normal rocker dude. I don't have this all right, so whatever story I tell, this is my version after. Michael knows more about this. But as I understand, Larry just said it like it was. He came from the whole the rocker era, and he's like, hey, I found Jesus, and I'm just going to say what my life is about and whatever. Right. But it wasn't what the church wanted. Which reminds me of Ferris with the whole book publisher thing. So he got banned, like he couldn't sing in church. In fact, even Billy Graham, like for those of you not aware, like big, evangelist big time as far as Christian realm. So you'd think he even used one of Larry Norman's song. And then as soon as they found out, oh, that's a Larry Norman, like they banned that song. And it was after it already kind of gone crazy. But he went like an underground. So, of course, all the kids at the time were like, well, this guy's banned in church. I'm going to go listen to him. And he had songs like, Gonorrhea on Valentine's Day, stuff like this that they just,
right,
they just didn't want to hear that in church. And so he started doing, kind of coffee house type things. He would do house concerts. His motivation was to reach the people. And the people just flocked to him. Now, I don't think that he was rich, and he had some, bumps in his life, whatever. But he definitely had a following the rest of his life, people that didn't just follow him but loved him because he cared about the people. But he did it by going against the grain on the Christian community. They rejected him, so they said, hey, I'm just going to go out there and sing. And he went underground. And we have bootleg copies. Did I just admit that? Because they weren't available in record stores. So he would just, like the BitTorrent, he would just make them available so that people could get the music.
Think about it. You think about it, you put it like probably the best thing could have happened to him was all these guys saying, we're not going to carry your book. Mm-hmm. Right? That's probably the best thing that could have happened to Tim Ferriss. I mean, he probably didn't even need Ryan Holiday at that point. Now he came and got him, well, what can I do? But man, I mean, what a story. You wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. Everybody loves you. Well, I'd love to publish this next book, but nobody will publish it because I'm publishing it on Amazon. I mean,
Do you think it's because he's the underdog? Do you think people are like, whoa, the big guys have the power to turn him down, so we'll show them, we'll support him? Is that?
I think that's got to be part of it. I mean, I was kind of interested once I heard that, right? Because everybody.
I'm like, okay, I'll go buy one just to support. Not that
exactly. I mean, yeah, everybody's likes that whole story, and so, I like the whole thing all the way around. I like the fact that if you can kind of understand the business, a business model, because typically, any business model that's really gonna have a lot of growth in it, it's not gonna be like the straight. You know what I mean? It's not gonna work the straightforward way. It's right. It's almost kind of like if I think it was it I guess was it Ryan Dice or whoever it was that talked about, well, you got to do this different thing with blogging. That may or may not be the case, but I think what he was saying was that if you just approach it so that you get traffic from the search engines and you rely on search traffic, it's a sucker's game, right? Long term. If that's the only thing that you rely on, and to some degree he was right, and I think he didn't get any argument from anybody who's a blogger, right? He got no argument with them. Now he might have had an argument with them about what you do about it, but he had no argument with them. And I guess anything that presents itself as a business model that everybody says you have to do, it's almost as if in order to get the leapfrog and growth, I think you have to kind of figure out another way to approach it, and it's got to be almost like you're going in a direction that if anybody saw you, they'd say, that's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's sort of the way Tim Ferriss kind of went at this. And I think, even what you're doing with your music and with the cafe, if you focus on quality, somebody would say you can't do that. You got to just pump this stuff out. I don't know, that doesn't work for you, right? And so apparently, I mean, you're right, but again, everybody else says you got to pump it out, right? Doesn't work, and you're seeing something. Right. So I guess
I talked to Terry Van Horn this morning in an interview, and he said something that was really encouraging. I don't know how long it was, if it was 18 months, 3 years, whatever. He said that, and he's like SEO expert, but he said we just kept plugging away, creating quality, sharing it on the social sites, and they were on like page 3. And rather than focusing on the techniques to get themselves to try to game it to get to the first page, it just kept doing quality.
Right.
And was it the Panda update? One of the updates, all of a sudden overnight, he was number 3. And he said it was number 3 because of the quality, because I stuck to the plan of producing quality. And that really encouraged me to say, for those people that really are passionate about the quality of what they produce, keep going. Your day will come. I truly believe that.
Right. Yeah, I think ultimately that's what it is. I mean, if it's going to be a business, I mean, it's almost like you really do have to treat it as a business. I think that the days are gone when you can kind of treat this as, I can make a few bucks by slipping in and slipping out. No, I think you gotta kind of be, everybody's got to have something where they are just, competitive is not the word, but fierce, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like ferocious at something, whether or not it's getting guests, like, there's just like one aspect of what we do that you've just got to be like unstoppable and like in the zone about, in order for it to be what it really can be. And I think everybody's got to kind of have that part of their business, whoever, whatever role they're playing, that they're ferocious in doing that part of it, because, kind of waiting for things to happen. I just don't. I have not seen it work yet. I have not been able to make it work that way. Does not mean that anybody can't. I have not seen it work for anybody, and I haven't seen it work for myself. I think that the folks who are hearing us, they know that
Don't you wanna kiss and
Yes,
hug
we do.
me?
Yes, we
Come
do.
on strong,
Thank you
go
for
on
listening,
and
guys.
love
Thanks for tuning
me.
in.
'Cause I'd waste
Right on.
that
Take
big
care,
old
everybody.
moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you wanna be more than friends. Got some love I'd like to make. Baby, you can squeeze me, I won't break. We could be in a paradise, you and me. Until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh yeah, until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh baby, just say when.